Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much. Oh, hi. And thank you, Carol, for that wonderful meditation and invocation. I thought you were talking to me with every word you spoke, because I feel that way. I feel that when I go to the hospital or go to someone's home who's on hospice, that I'm doing exactly what you say, to give it the heart, to be there for someone else. Yeah, okay. That's why the tissues are here. Yes, I'm a little bit, I don't want to say I'm famous within the community, but I'm reliable. I will be crying before this is over. And I hope that maybe if that's what you need to do, it's okay too. I wanted to talk about heaven today because we hear about it so often. It's part of our cultural experience. People who have no other spiritual connection whatsoever, they've heard about heaven and they've heard about hell, and they don't want to go to either one because of what they think it's about. In my role as chaplain, I do get to comfort those at the hospital who are facing some pretty tough circumstances. And sometimes even sit with folks as they're dying, as I did a few weeks back. Fellow had no family, no friends, and so I took it on myself to sit there and hold his hand and let him know he wasn't alone. I don't know if he heard me. His eyes were closed and he was, clearly someplace else. But in the event he could, I just wanted him to be, not alone. Not alone. Oh, by the way, that has prompted myself and a number of the nurses to start the process of creating a team of volunteers to come and sit with those who are dying. No one dies alone. You may be hearing about that in the future, but it's coming. And also, as I mentioned, going to a person's home and sitting with them, talking with them, letting them vent. It's very normal to feel angry if you feel your lifetime is being cut short by disease. But yet things like that do happen, and folks struggle. They struggle with the sense of guilt. What did I do to deserve this? Or the anger. Why, God, are you punishing me? I know I didn't do anything. And simply being there, allowing the venting, the rage, and maybe, answering questions like, you did nothing to deserve this. You did nothing to create this. This is us walking around in, this package of flesh and blood, and things happen. People get sick, people get hurt, people get killed. It's not something you've done, but it's part of, part of the journey, because death is a part of life's journey. I get to see the worst cases and in some good cases too. And I know that others are like waiting for me to tell you a hospital story. This was at Renown Hospital when I was still in training, still figuring out how to be a good chaplain. I got a message from one of the nurses, can I please come and see Bill? Bill is in this, this such and such room. He was very angry last night, angry at God, angry at us, and I can tell this morning he's still angry. Could you come by? Okay. I always make sure I take a quick look at, what's the medical records say. Well, what's wrong with Bill? So I'm ready. I know what I'm walking into. And I found out that Bill is a 30-year-old man with the mind of a 12-year-old. What happened is earlier on in life, he had an illness that caused a buildup of water pressure in the brain, and it actually shifted his brain to one side and causing tremendous pain, and also impairing, damaged the brain to the degree that his development was arrested. I mean, he never got past that point of psychological development that you and I and most people do get past. So he's thinking like a 12-year-old. And he was at the hospital in order to have like a tube placed that would relieve the pressure to get the fluid out of his skull so that his brain could go back to the shape and size that it needs to be. So I trot down to see Bill. And Bill's lying in his hospital bed, sitting up, I should say, sitting up in his bed with his legs covered by the sheets and blankets. And as soon as I walk in the door, I could see his leg shaking, you know. And I went up and I kind of introduced myself to him and let him know why I was there. And I asked him, the nurse said that you feel angry at God. What's up? And that's when his legs really started shaking. I said, Bill, this guy is about 6'2", 200 pounds. He could reach out and snap me like a stick. I was like, Bill, you want to calm down, Bill? Tell me what's happened. So I spent this whole yesterday getting tests. I told him when I came inside the hospital door, I said, it's my brain and there's a drain and it's not working, and that's why I have this terrible headache. And they made me go through all these tests, and then after a day-long series of tests, guess what? It's exactly what I said it was going to be. I felt it before. I know what it was. Why did they make me go through a day of pain? I said, Bill, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't something else, and it wasn't something in addition to what you thought. And so that's why. How are you feeling today? Well, I'm not in pain anymore, but I'm still damn angry. Okay, Bill, we did our best. Apologize if it wasn't up to your expectation. No, I'm mad at God. Oh, what? Why are you mad at God, Bill? Well, he took my mother away, and I need to get back out there and to try and find her and to bring her home. Oh, Bill, really, what happened? Well, I was in the hospital, and when I came out, they told me that God had taken my mother, and I don't know why God took my mother. I love my mother. I want to be with her again. I want to bring her home. And so, can you tell me how to get to heaven? Because that's where she is. And I said, Bill, heaven's not a place you can drive to or fly to or take a boat to, Heaven is where people who do good in life go when they die. Are you saying my mother's dead? Bill, I don't know about your mother, but I'm supposing that's the truth. If she's in heaven, that means he's passed away. Damn it, he started to rant. I said, Bill, again, calm down. The leg was twitching now, and I realized that he was getting kind of spun up. And he said, how am I going to be with her? I said, Bill, you can't be with her in the way you were with her before, but you can be with her when you think of her and when you feel the love in your heart, the love that you share. She will always be there, Bill. She will always be there to, to talk to and you can listen to. You won't hear the words inside your ear, but you'll hear the words inside your head. And so, Bill, that's the way it's going to have to be, I'm afraid. And he starts to get angry, and don't you know it, just then the doctor walks in and he's being whisked off to another test. And so I said, Bill, you and I have not finished this conversation. You go take your test. I'll see some other patients, and then I'll come back, and we can talk some more. Well, the day moved on. The test took several hours, it turns out, and it was really towards the end of the day when and I came back into the room, and I said, Bill, how'd the test go? Okay. And my conversation with the psychiatrist went well too. What? So, yeah, I had a video conference with a psychiatrist, and I feel much better now. Really? What did you and psychiatrist talk about? Well, psychiatrist saw what you wrote down. You must have written down something about, our talk today, because he started talking to me about my mom and what it's like in heaven. And, I realized that heaven is not a bad place to be. She was a good mother, and when people die, God takes them to heaven. And I picture her. She is knitting and looking out the window and having friends come and visit with her. And she sees flowers, and it's just a happy place. I said, Bill, that's great. That's a good, picture to have in your head. Every time you think of her, think about her doing just that. And so, would you need anything? No, I'm fine. Thank you very much. Appreciate your help. Well, that was accidental success. But it's like not a typical story, but it's like one of many interactions that a chaplain can stumble his way through, which I tend to do more often than not. Our topic today is about the afterlife. It's about heaven, and I'm not going to try and tell you what I think about it, because I don't have any, personal insight. I know what Ernest Holmes says about heaven being a state of consciousness and awareness of our being spiritual beings having a human experience, and our awareness of that is like a state of heaven. But I want to talk a little bit about the cultural meaning of heaven, and that goes back a very, very long time, the origins of it and the development of it. And I'm going to be referring to notes from time to time, so if I look down, that's what I'm doing. The idea of afterlife has been around since before there are humans. Going back at least 200,000 years, even longer. People have been burying their dead. In fact, not even people. The type of ape that led up to humans later on, but still, in the group called Homo, like we're Homo sapiens. This was another Homo group that buried their dead, and it was discovered in a cave where a pit had been dug inside the cave, and the body was placed in there, and the soil put back on top of the body. And this is even before humans came to be. So it's been around for a very, very long time. If you fast forward into what history we do know, we do know that over time, this idea of there being something after the physical life continued to grow. The ideas grew as our societies did. In ancient kingdoms, we knew we sense that there is a heaven, and that's for the gods, plural, as well as certain heroes, and maybe some kings or pharaohs could make it there. But most everyone else went down into the underworld. And that wasn't a punishment, that was just what people did. When you passed, you went into the what they considered, below ground, cross the river Styx, and you get to where everyone is a shadow of their former self, but still entire. They were not human anymore, but they contained the personality and the appearance of the person who was alive. And that worked fine for thousands of years. People were buried, or, as in some cultures, they were consumed by fire, or they were left out for the animals to consume and return to the earth that way. But there was always an understanding that was simply the body, that was not the essence of the person going either up in smoke or down in the ground. The essence continued on. And in fact, in Egypt, we see today the pyramids, which were monuments to the pharaohs. Clearly they were semi-divine, and so they deserved a better place of rest than being buried in the ground. They had other cultures started to come into contact with each other. People were less nomadic and settled down into clusters, and towns and cities started to develop. And the ancient Judeans got conquered and then conquered again. It was the people coming over from what is now, Iran and Mesopotamia. First, the Mesopotamians conquered the northern part of what was Judea, and then later on, the Babylonians came over and conquered the rest of it, and sacked Jerusalem and whisked the leadership away to Babylon, whereas the more common people stayed behind and simply worked for a new boss. They were put in place there. And the folks who were whisked off included the intelligent, the leadership, the priests, and all of those who could stir up trouble. And they were there for hundreds of years. What we now know is that in Babylon, the official religion, which had come over from Persia, Zoroastrianism. And it had a whole range of beliefs and stories that you may recognize. There's this ongoing struggle between the one deity and his evil counterpart. We might call that the devil. That people had free will to choose between doing good and evil, and what were where they went after death was determined by their choices during life. That in the end of the world, there will be a final judgment, and everybody will be raised from the dead and then judged by the one deity to go to heaven or go to hell. Any of this sound familiar? they believed that the deity issued forth, in essence, a Holy Spirit to work, be in the world representing the deity and encouraging people to do good. There were sub-deities, like equivalent to angels, who would be the messengers of the deity to people. That people had a soul, and this was a new concept, and that the deity actually resided in that soul, in that person. That there would, in the end days, be a savior born, and the savior would be born to a virgin. Again, anything sound familiar here? And then there will be revelations on the mountaintop for the leader to bring back down to the people. And I forgot to mention, back in the creation story, there were 6 days of creation and then a day of rest. It appears that a lot of those ideas got absorbed into the culture of the time, the culture of Babylon, and brought back from Babylon to Jerusalem when the leadership was released by Cyrus the Great. In fact, it was because Persia conquered Babylon that Cyrus said, you don't need to stay here anymore. You can go back home. And he was given the name Messiah because he had freed the people. Some stayed behind, but many did return, and bringing back those ideas about the Zoroastrian philosophy. And it got incorporated into the ancient Hebrew texts in the Torah and into Christianity later on. And so this idea of a heaven and hell, it is part of our culture today. I mean, even now, thousands of years later, we're still talking about it as if, everybody knows this. This is the way it is. Well, maybe not. And maybe we can talk about how we individually feel about that. But why do these ideas persist? Why do we continue to talk about heaven and hell? And to be quite honest, they serve a purpose. They maintain the status quo. People tend to behave better if they think there's going to be consequences for improper behavior. It leads to a sense of hope. I might be in a terrible situation, but I have hope for something to come later on. And it helps us to deal with our fear of death, the anxiety that comes with the knowledge, because we're the only animal that can think about the fact that we're going to die. How do we deal with the idea that what we're doing may all be in vain? Yeah. So it does serve a psychological purpose, I suppose. But I don't know. People can get the wrong idea. And like Bill and Dan, I forgot to mention Dan. Dan is a man I met recently. I mean, just in the last week and a half. He's on hospice. He has an incurable brain disease, and he is scared out of his mind that he's going to hell. Or at least I found that out after I sat with him and talked with him, and we got comfortable enough together that he shared this. He is terribly afraid of what's going to happen to him. And it's sad. Because the Dan I've come to know, he's not a bad guy. He hasn't killed anybody, hurt anybody, stolen anything. He's nothing like that, you know. But he's so worried about what happens after death for him that he's not enjoying his final days. You know, his wife is doing her best to make him feel better and to, you know, do things more meaningful together, going out and looking at the stars or taking walks in the forest nearby. But he's just obsessed with this fear of what's to come. I'm still working with him, and will do so as long as he'll have me. Anyway, I'm going to speak just another minute or so, and then pass the mic and ask you to share your thoughts and feelings on this topic. Ernest Holmes, the founder of the Science of Mind philosophy, has shared what he thinks about heaven and hell and life after death. Though he didn't, state it as something everybody must believe. It was, in fact, quite open about it. He said, I don't know, but here's what I think, and here's what I believe. But you're welcome to believe something different. That heaven is an inner peace that we experience when we become conscious of our connection with God. That is not something that comes later. It's something that we can have right now when we recognize that God is among us, within us, and really all there is. That sense of peace and security and comfort, knowing that all is well and always will be. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to, like Dan, to get all caught up about. Yeah. He was talking about heaven. It's not something to be earned after death, but it's available to us right here, right now. I don't know. I have my own thoughts about death, and it's by no means a secret. I have had an experience in my past where I felt the presence of God as a beneficial, loving force in my life, a real thing, not just an idea. And with that moment of connection came a feeling of total peace and security. And I know that's where I came from, and that's where I shall go back to when it's over. And knowing that, it's oh, well, cool. Everything is fine because I know what's going to be. I don't have to worry about it. And it gives me a sense of total security and total meaning to know that there is such a thing that loves me and is there. But I'm just one guy. I have no special powers. If others have had insights, I'd love if you wouldn't mind sharing them. Anybody?
I'll share.
Oh.
Thank you, Rick, because it's a great topic. When I first started going to Ananda Village, over time, you get to know people, and people would be dying, and there was a joy about it. And it just was so curious to me that people were like, well, they're going to die soon. It's like, it's a good thing. And it's like, well, okay. As I came to understand, it was because they felt absolutely they're returning to God. So what's to worry about? You're going to go be with God, who is already with you all the time. And so there was that personal connection about dropping fear that was really special. But I think one of the bigger things it also gave to me is that I wasn't angry when people died young or had bad circumstances. It's like, well, they're going to God too. How you get there is one thing, but it just, so I don't have that charge now when people die young or any karma and reincarnation. That's another aspect of all that. But just this idea that some deaths are good and some deaths are bad. You're still going back to God, whatever it is. So it really released anger for me.
Just building on what Mary said, I agree. And I think for me, being on a spiritual path, I can't imagine not being on a spiritual path and always growing closer and closer to God. And Rick, you must really come across people that like are so afraid. I've never understood how people could not be on a spiritual path, but that's their choice, that's their path, and that's all fine. It's just sad at the end, you know, to be so scared and frightened and all of that. Yeah, I don't even know how to put it in words, but knowing that, you know, you are going back to God, and yeah, how do you get there, the soul? Who knows? But that is just such a lovely feeling, knowing you're safe and loved, and there's nothing to worry about, you know? I don't know how else to put it, but I do. My heart goes out to people that have no beliefs, and I don't know, I've met people like that, and I just look at them in awe, but they seem happy enough. I just, you know, I wonder when the end does come how they make sense of that. But there again, that's their journey. So I'm glad I'm on my journey. So anyway.
I was thinking of that ashes to ashes, dust to dust kind of thing. But I think heaven is a way of explanation that I think we've all experienced when we were children. That was how our parents explained, my parents explained to me, like the dog died, you know, but the dog's going to go to heaven, which is a happy place, and it's up there somewhere. So you're always looking up when people talk about heaven. Most of the time their eyes go up. They think that heaven's there. But I think it's been culturized somehow that we don't really know that heaven can be within too. And the same thing happened with when you experience, as you grow up, more death. And I'm grateful too for a spiritual path, and my family was very spiritual also. But that there was always that little inkling of hell. Like, you know, if you don't behave, you're going to go to hell. And it's like, and that, and then there was the purgatory piece that came in, and limbo and all that stuff, you know. But the hell, as a child, I definitely saw that devil there in that red outfit with the pick, yeah, and fire everywhere, you know, and a horrible place to go. So you better straighten up, you know. But it worked. As a society, I think it has worked to keep us kind of on the straight and narrow, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, I kind of like this concept of heaven is really within. It's a good place.
Well, I see the time is running out here, so what I want to do is kind of, wrap this up in a bow. The the feelings, the ideas, the beliefs of the past don't need to bind us any longer. All of us have been exposed to these cultural ideas of right and wrong, and have to act a certain way, be a certain way. We're at a point in our lives, I think, that we can make some decisions about, does that continue to serve me? I think so. Yeah, but they're out there, and the folks we meet and talk with and love each day, they are still there. So let us, be patient and kind, recognizing that this is their worldview, and that guides their thought process and their behaviors, and we love them anyway. All right, let's take a moment of prayer before we finish up. Heavenly Creator, one with many names, we know that your presence in our lives is a source of peace and love and joy and understanding and abundance and all other things good. Thank you for all of our gifts and our insights and our willingness to open our hearts to each other, to others, and to you. Guide us this day and every day. And as together we say, and so it is.
So it is. Whew, that was good.